Every year, doctors in the US perform about 15 million operations. Well, this seems like a fairly high number. When you think about America, who have 300 million people, well, we're only talking about 15 million people, which is a really small percentage of people who have operations a year. Well, one of those reasons might be because a lot of people can't actually afford to have surgeries. A lot more people might need it, but you may not have it because you just can't afford it. But sometimes it's necessary to have it because it could save your life. So this right here is the top 10 most expensive surgeries. Now, most of these numbers are based from the States, and some of these numbers are an average. And there's so many surgeries out there. Let me know if you guys know of this knowledge, if you guys know of other very expensive surgeries. Let me know, because I'll do an update on this list, or we can do a part 2. So starting off this list, in at number 10 we have a tracheostomy. It costs over $200,000. A tracheostomy is a surgical procedure which consists of making an incision on the anterior aspect of the neck, opening a direct airway through an incision in the trachea, which is your windpipe. The procedure is one of the oldest ones on this list. Doctors and people have been performing this way back in the Roman time. It was rarely practiced in humans, but back in 1000 AD, there was an illustration of the earliest time the surgery was performed and documented. But a doctor performed the surgery on a slave girl who had cut her own throat in a suicide attempt. The girl's wound was stitched up and the girl recovered because of the surgery. Without the surgery, a lot of people wouldn't be able to breathe and it would become fatal. Moving on to number 9 on this list, we have the kidney transplant surgery that costs over $262,000. Now, this is one expensive surgery. This is because it actually involves 2 people. The first kidney transplant between living patients was actually performed back in 1952. The high cost for the surgery is because there's a lot of machines needed and the technology used to perform this very complex surgery. The preparation is very intense and it comes with high risk, and it has an extensive recovery period. Depending on the length of the stay at the hospital, expenses can pile up to nearly $250,000 or more, which is really crazy because a lot of surgeries you actually don't know what your recovery period is going to be or how long you're staying at the hospital for. So saying all that, sometimes you don't know what the hospital bill is going to come out to, and it can be quite high. It's actually financially scary to go through with a lot of these surgeries. Pancreas transplant surgery comes in at number 8. This operation costs over $289,000. A pancreas transplant is an organ transplant that involves implanting a healthy pancreas into a person who usually has diabetes. Because the pancreas is a vital organ, you can only get one from a patient living. And also the person getting the pancreas will still have their pancreas inside of them. Surgeons will usually attach the donated pancreas in a different location. In the event of rejection of the new pancreas, which would quickly cause life-threatening diabetes, doctors have to try to switch back to the original pancreas, if it's even working that is, and hopefully the patient can receive another one that their body will accept. This surgery is actually one of the most complex surgeries. So imagine if your body doesn't accept that, then it has to go through another cost. You have to pay for it all over again. At number 7 is open heart surgery. This is very scary, but this costs over $324,000. Another popular name for open heart surgery is cardiovascular heart surgery. This surgery is on the heart of great vessels performed by cardiac surgeons. Open heart surgery has been performed for hundreds of years, so doctors have actually perfected this operation. As time goes on, there seems to be less and less risks as the technology advances. This surgery is also known to be one of the most popular surgeries because a lot of people seem to need bypass surgery or heart transplants or even valve replacements. Your heart is such an important organ and it provides so much for your body. Your heart is such a complex organ, but saying that, it has a lot of complications that surround it. Around 610,000 people die of heart disease in the United States every single year. That's about 1 in 4 deaths, which is very, very scary. I actually know a lot of people who have suffered from something to do with their heart, and it's very scary. Number 6, liver transplant is next, costing over $577,000. This is a very high risk surgery, and the criteria for the eligibility is very strict because the human body often rejects a new liver. Because of all of this tends to cost a lot of money because of the extensive administrative and record expenses. Doctors, nurses, and researchers have to find the right liver, and we just learned it could be hard. There are also a lot of costs that occur during the surgery itself and also for the recovery period. Usually patients have to possibly stay in an intensive care unit for a few days, but usually they would have to stay in hospital hospital for about 5 to 10 days. And they also have to have frequent checkups after the surgery as the patient recovers at home. On top of all that, you have to pay for medications for the rest of your life, which we all know could be very costly. Okay, a bone marrow transplant costs about $676,000 on average, and this comes in to number 5. The cost varies depending on the type of bone marrow transplant that's required for the surgery. A bone marrow transplant is a procedure to replace damaged or destroyed bone marrow with healthy bone marrow stem cells. Bone marrow is a soft fatty tissue inside of your bones. Stem cells are immune cells in the bone marrow that give rise to all of your blood cells. Okay, at number 4 we have the lung transplant, and that costs $797,000. A donor's lung can be retrieved from a donor, living or deceased. Lung transplants actually hasn't been around for that long because it's very complicated. The first successful long-term single lung transplant was performed back in 1983 from Dr. Joel Cooper from Toronto. The first successful long-term double lung transplant was also performed by the same doctor from Toronto, and this happened 3 years after his first breakthrough surgery. Just under $1 million, at number 3, we have the heart transplant. So this is different from the open heart surgery. This is a heart transplant. So it's a high-risk surgery that takes a patient about 6 months to reach full recovery. Worldwide, about 3,500 heart transplants are performed annually. The Heart Transplants Media Center in Los Angeles, California is currently the largest heart transplant center in the world. Heart transplant is considered to not be the cure for heart disease, but it is a life-saving treatment intended to improve the quality of life. After the surgery is successful, patients can usually live with the heart for an average of 15 years. After that time period, the patient has to try to have another transplant. Heart-lung transplant comes in at number 2. So this is a combination of two things. This is a procedure carried out to replace both the heart and your lungs in a single operation. So due to a shortage of suitable donors, and due to the fact that both the lung and the heart has to be transplanted together, it is a very rare procedure. Only about 100 people a year has this operation in the States, and not to mention that this is very expensive. This procedure costs over $1.14 million. You have to pay over $1 million to try to save your life if you need this operation. It's rare, but there are people that need it. Most candidates with both their heart and lung damaged so badly that they need this operation only have about 12 to 24 months to live. And after you go through this operation, there's still a chance that your body will reject the new organs, which means you have to go through this whole thing all over again. There's going to be a whole new set of complications, which could mean more costs, and it could also mean your life. Finally, number 1 for the most expensive surgeries that I was able to find is the intestine transplant, which costs around $1.2 million. Intestinal transplants are done to replace dead tissue and healthy tissue from a donor, and are sometimes combined with a liver transplant, making this the most complicated surgical medical procedures in the United States. Nearly $800,000 goes towards the hospital's administration, and admission fees, which is another $150,000, is used up in the days following the surgery and while the patient is in recovery. Well, that was a mouthful to take in, guys. That was a whole lot of information, but that's what we love to do here. We love to entertain you guys, give you guys a whole bunch of knowledge as well. I'm gonna be working on the next video. I'm gonna make sure it's like I'm just talking about like pictures or something like that, or maybe it's dumbest tweets. Maybe I'll jump in with Danny. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys all in the next one.